This is the continent of Africa. And this vast yellow area is one of the harshest places for human life on Earth. Yes, you got it right, it's the Sahara Desert. It's huge, it's 9,200,000 square kilometers, which is even larger than the contiguous United States. To make it more obvious, I've cut it out from a map of the United States. As you can see, you can perfectly fit the United States in the Sahara Desert, excluding Alaska and Hawaii. And by the way, I really like this satellite image of Africa. In the next video, you'll probably find it somewhere on the wall behind me. Anyway, the desert is endless, and it's needless to say that water is quite difficult to come across in the desert, and the weather is extremely hot. Nevertheless, more than 100,000 sub-Saharan Africans attempt to cross this massive body of sand to reach Europe every year. But only 19 to 8% of them are estimated to enter Europe. Along the way, they face different challenges, such as crossing the Sahara Desert, being attacked by armed militants in the desert and kidnapped to be sold as slaves, or attempting to cross the Mediterranean Sea in extremely fragile boats packed with hundreds of people. Every day, hundreds of Africans risk their lives by undertaking this atrocious journey to reach Europe. In this video, I am going to take you on this unbelievable journey. This is a journey that hundreds of thousands of Africans try to complete every year, but very few of them succeed. This is a journey of life and death. This is how sub-Saharan Africans reach Europe.
The bodies of over 90 migrants have been found in the Sahara in northern Niger.
A disturbing slave trade of migrants in Libya, subjected to starvation, forced labour and prostitution, and even murdered.
Civil wars, ethnic conflicts, unemployment, poverty. These are the things that force the African youth to embark on long and extremely dangerous journeys, departing from their countries of origin in sub-Saharan Africa to cross the Sahara Desert and then the Mediterranean Sea to reach Europe. They are mainly from Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, Ethiopia and Somalia. They leave their countries and come to Niger. Here they pay smugglers to help them cross the Sahara Desert. In 2017, the European Union struck a deal with the Nigerian government to tackle the migrant issue and allocated millions of euros to the Nigerian government. Because Niger has always been a major crossroad for migrants from sub-Saharan Africa. Right after the deal with the EU, the Nigerian government criminalized smuggling migrants and took away smugglers' Toyota pickups that they used for transporting migrants. The subsequent years saw a steady decline in the number of migrants coming through Niger, but the issue has remained unresolved to this day. Of course it was going to remain unresolved. To resolve the issue, you have to address the root causes. But what the EU did was finance the Nigerian government to prevent migrants from crossing through Niger. Anyway, in general, the deal did not help that much, and hundreds of thousands of sub-Saharan Africans still attempt to reach Europe through Niger. Their journey is very long. Migrants cover more than 2,000 kilometers in the Sahara Desert before reaching the Mediterranean Sea in Libya. It's like traveling from El Paso, the US-Mexico border, to the US-Canada border, but in the desert. From the Mediterranean coast in Libya, they travel 450 kilometers to reach Italy, the first EU country they enter. I will break down their travel along this route into 3 chapters. First, crossing the Sahara Desert. Second, trying to survive militants in Libya. Third, crossing the Mediterranean Sea. Every week, hundreds of sub-Saharan Africans enter Agadez ghettos and accommodate there until they receive adequate money from their families to pay smugglers. Agadez is a city in Niger and it's considered the unofficial capital of migrants. It's the gateway into the Sahara Desert. Most of the migrants run out of money by the time they reach Agadez. They are often robbed on the way to Niger. They may wait for days, weeks, or even months in these ghettos. After receiving the required money, migrants jump in trucks to begin this journey of life and death. They put long tree branches between their legs to stop them from falling off in the middle of the desert. Sometimes smugglers won't stop their cars for a fallen migrant. Migrants take food and water supplies with them, but of course under the boiling heat of the desert, they quickly run out of water. Therefore, they have to drive along waterways in order to replenish water supplies. What's interesting is that the Nigerian army also patrols those waterways to detain approaching migrants. But before the EU-Niger deal, it was the total opposite. The Nigerian army itself used to accompany migrants until they reached Libya to make sure they did not get attacked by bandits in the Sahara desert. But after the deal, the Nigerian government stopped protecting migrants and instead put patrols around waterways. Because they know which way migrants go, they will always need to replenish water. In order not to get caught by the Nigerian military, smugglers risk migrants' lives by avoiding waterways and taking different routes. And many die of dehydration or get attacked, looted and killed by bandits as they avoid the main and relatively safer roads because of the patrols. They die before even reaching Libya. Many migrants also die stranded in the middle of the desert after their cars break down. Now I believe it makes sense to you why I called it a journey of life and death. Let's move on to the second chapter, trying to survive militants in Libya. The reason why the central Mediterranean route goes through Libya is that Libya has been a war-torn country for more than a decade now. The country has been split between rival powers since Gaddafi's death in 2011, and there is no law and order in Libya. Therefore, Libya's borders aren't guarded properly. Some parts aren't even guarded at all, especially the part between Niger and Libya. Taking advantage of this chaos, smugglers turned Libya into a hub for migrants trying to reach Europe. All this chaos makes it easier for migrants to get through, but the instability in the country also brings about many serious risks for migrants. There are two main sides fighting over governing Libya: the Tripoli-based and UN-recognized government led by Abdulhamid Dbeibeh in the west, and the Tobruk-based government led by Fatih Bashaga in the east. These two sides have lots of affiliated brigades and militant groups, each controlling certain areas of the country on their own. There are also lots of Tuareg and Tubu tribal militias in southern Libya that are pretty much independent. Migrants passing through Libya's parts of the Sahara Desert are often kidnapped by these different militant groups and put into so-called detention centers in Libya. The conditions under which migrants are held in those detention centers are unimaginably horrendous. The centers are full of starved, malnourished, sick migrants suffering from different diseases such as tuberculosis. People sleep on the floor next to rotting food waste. They are beaten, raped, and tortured in torture chambers with really mind-blowing methods. Their torturers call migrants close ones and force them to listen to the screams of their daughters, sons, and brothers on phone and demand thousands of dollars to release them. They record their torture videos and send them to their families. Most of the time, families can't pay a ransom and migrants are tortured to death in those torture chambers. Militias also enslave migrants and take them to open slave markets in the country to sell them as slaves. The prices range from $400 to $200 United States dollars, depending on the physical conditions of migrants. Enslaved migrants are forced to work under terrible conditions by their owners and given food only once per day. Female migrants are also sold as sex slaves and have to endure terrible sexual abuses. Their owners or their pimps make their lives a living hell. Children are separated from their parents as well and forced into sexual activities or child labor. Migrants are also caught in the crossfire of the armed conflicts in Libya. Those detention centers are usual military buildings emptied for migrants, and it makes them target for airstrikes and shelling of rival powers. Most of the time, whenever bombing starts, soldiers run away and leave migrants locked up in those buildings. All that migrants could do at that moment is pray for their lives, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. On July 2, 2019, during a military conflict, an airstrike hit the Tajura detention center outside Tripoli. When the missile hit the building, there were hundreds of migrants inside the building. As a result, more than 50 migrants died, and more than 130 people were injured. In general, there are thousands of migrants trapped in the crossfire of clashes between Libyan militias. But in the whole of Libya, there are 650,000 migrants that got stuck in the country, according to the International Organization destination for migration. In general, Libya's chaos makes it easier for migrants to get to the coasts of the Mediterranean Sea to reach Europe. But it also makes Libya a hell for migrants, where they suffer extortion, rape, torture, and so on. Okay, now let's move on to the third and last chapter of this journey, crossing the Mediterranean Sea. The Mediterranean Sea is the last barrier on migrants' way to Europe. In other words, to their dreams to a better life. Migrants who successfully cross the Sahara Desert and avoid or manage to survive all the attacks, kidnappings and tortures by the militia in Libya reach the Libyan coasts of the Mediterranean Sea near Tripoli, the closest area of Libya to Italy. Here they make arrangements with other smugglers that promise to help them cross the Mediterranean Sea. Smugglers fill small and fragile boats with hundreds of migrants. They literally push those boats beyond their limits and risk migrants' lives. While several thousand migrants succeed in making it to the Italian coasts, between 2,000 to 4,000 migrants drown in those overcrowded boats every year. Those who reach Italy either try to illegally live in Europe or apply for asylum as refugees. But most of the migrants can't go beyond Libyan waters and are intercepted by the Libyan coast guards. Remember when we talked about the EU-Niger agreement to prevent migrants from reaching Libya? Since 2017, the EU has signed similar agreements with the Libyan interim government and has been funding and training Libyan coast guards to intercept migrant boats and take migrants back, you know where? To the notorious Libyan detention centers. The centers we just talked about. Yes, you heard it right. The EU pays and trains the Libyan coast guards to put migrants back into those atrocious detention centers. It literally says to the Libyans, take this money and keep migrants away from our sea borders at all costs. By denying migrants exit, the EU denies them a legal way to live as well. In fact, the migrant crisis happening in Libya right now can be considered mainly the product of the EU-Libya agreement. Because believe it or not, the EU also funds those inhumane detention centers. And of course, most of the funding goes to the pockets of the Libyan leaders and the militias that control those detention centers. They use this money to buy more weapons and ammunition. International humanitarian organizations such as Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch have repeatedly called on the EU states to suspend cooperation on migration and border control with Libya. But the EU does not consider itself responsible for the fate of the returned migrants and says IOM and UNHCR are responsible for all the mess surrounding migrants in Libya. Let's take a look at this very interesting video where Channel 4 News correspondent Parag O'Brien quizzed then European Commissioner for Migration Dimitris Avramopoulos in 2019.
Dire. It's a disgrace for the whole world.
At the moment, the European Union are funding the Libyan Coast Guard to, in effect, transport refugees and migrants to the centres you think should be shut down. Do you acknowledge the sort of dark irony of that? Do you acknowledge that?
Yes, it is an irony, also in my eyes, but I can tell you that our interlocutors on the ground are not the ones who run the detention centers, but IOM and UNHCR.
As you can see, the EU says the UN refugee agencies, IOM and UNHCR should be responsible for the atrocious situation in the Libyan detention centers. There is another video where UN human rights spokesperson Rupert Colville explains why the agencies are unable to help migrants in Libya, and also agrees that the EU-Libya deal takes lives both in the sea and in the detention centers. Let's watch.
But for agencies, it's not easy operating in Libya. You have a very difficult security situation. So it's really beyond the powers, I think, of UN agencies, of NGOs single-handedly to solve this.
If you have a country where, law and order breaks down, structures break down, this EU-backed policy, do you accept that the consequences, intended or otherwise, effectively mean now that refugees who are fleeing either face the threat of drowning or being sent to one of these camps where they will face disease or even death? And those are the consequences of this policy.
I think in many respects, yes, that's absolutely right.
As evident from the videos, both the EU and the UN blame each other for the catastrophic situation concerning migrants in Libya. But tens of thousands of migrants have died on the central Mediterranean route since the EU's agreements with Niger and Libya. There are more than 20,000 skeletons of migrants lying on the seabed of the Mediterranean Sea, and much more of them are in the Sahara Desert, covered by sand. Most of them aren't even registered as dead in their countries. Their families don't know about their whereabouts. They have just perished like they have never existed. As a matter of fact, they are still perishing. Every day innocent people die on their way from sub-Saharan Africa to Europe, mostly because of the EU's agreements with Niger and Libya. But they are merely neglected by the international community. They receive less coverage on television. Your friends probably don't share them on social media. No one talks about these poor people. And considering high fertility and unemployment rates in sub-Saharan Africa, it seems like this atrocity will continue for a long time. With old politicians exchanging empty accusations, only you, the ordinary people, can stop this madness. Since you have already watched this video and you are already informed about what these people have been going through for the last 6 or 7 years, you can raise awareness by simply liking and sharing this video. You can also write your own opinion below. What do you think? Who is responsible for this? What needs to be done to resolve the issue? Your subscription also matters. Subscribe to the channel to help me create more content like this. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.